So those of you who are not at your seats, please take the seats. Det er sådan lidt underligt setup, men altså, det er sådan der. Super, jeg kan nemlig ikke se folk, så det er lidt akavet. Ja, jeg tænker det bedre. Tak. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think our excellencies are arriving. Please join me in the... There we at least have the Minister of Industry. Hi, Simon. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo, Dutch PM Mark Rutte, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and President of the EU Commission Ursula von der Leyen. Welcome. Welcome here, Excellencies. We all know how much is on your respective plates these days. So I know that I speak on behalf of everybody when we say we are really, really pleased that you have prioritized to be here today. Before we get started listening to you, we have sort of a security announcement which must be done when we are in a place like this. So I'll hand over the floor to Henrik Andersen, the CEO of Vestas.
Thank you so much, Connie. And first of all, dear Prime Minister, Chancellor, President, Minister of Industry, colleagues, dear distinct guests, welcome to the Vestas offshore facility here in Esbjerg and also for the North Sea Summit. For Vestas, safety always comes first, so before I continue my short introduction, here's a few key safety pointers for today. All production activities today are paused. Normal PPE requirements in the factory are cancelled. And in case of an evacuation fire alarm, please follow the walkways out towards the exit, and you will also be guided by the Vestas colleagues here. With our safety introduction in place, I'd like to share just a few perspectives of why we are gathered here at Esbjerg today. It is on a truly very tragic background. We have seen decades of disagreement around energy policy get settled almost in a matter of weeks. Why? Because we suddenly all could agree that renewables are the strategic tool to our energy security. Today we can now all agree to choose wind because it fights the climate change, it keeps electricity prices down, and it delivers energy security. We're here today because we all agree that we have a change and we have to change our energy system fast and change it much faster than many probably would say just a few months ago. We would, on behalf of the industry, humbly like to offer you the strategic tool of the renewable energy, and today is the visible, tangible evidence of that we are ready for you. Everyone at Vestas look forward to start accelerating the journey towards a more resilient energy system rather today than tomorrow. So with that, thank you, welcome, and enjoy the conference, and have a good stay here at Vestas.
Thank you very much, Henrik Andersen, and what a day this is. We already had the first panel, and I can tell you people are thrilled by the decisions that you are about to take or have taken, and the declaration that is coming out. As the moderator, I have quite a challenge now, because I have 5 excellences and 4 CEOs, and now, I guess, 40 minutes to share, and really, really many aspects we would like to cover. So please be as succinct and short as possible. And it is, of course, only fair that the Danish Prime Minister will be the one that shows the good example. So, Mette Frederiksen, please give us your take on the vision of the North Sea as a green power plant, please. And I should say, you must be very close to the mic, because this room was not made for sort of microphones and that sort of stuff. Very close.
And maybe not for politicians. but we will see on that. Firstly, I would like to thank my colleagues for coming to Esbjerg today to see firsthand what offshore wind means for local communities and to confirm your high ambitions on green energy. Of course, the green transition is happening as we speak, but it is not happening fast enough. We need to speed up and we need to scale up. We need to free ourselves from the Russian gas, and we need to combat climate change in time. So we are in a hurry. Today, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Denmark are setting a common vision for green energy in the North Sea with the Esbjerg Declaration. And the reason why we are here is that the North Sea holds great potential. We have the size and the right conditions for creating a large-scale alternative to the fossil fuels, with much more offshore wind, green hydrogen, clean and affordable energy for the industries and for the consumers. I think this is specifically important, that with this declaration we can ensure affordable energy for millions of European citizens and for our industries, and green European and important jobs. In other words, what we want to do is that we want to make the North Sea a green power plant for the entire European Union. To do this, we need some very strong partnerships with the industry and with the European Commission. That is why we are here in Esbjerg today, to confirm that we have the political will to develop offshore wind as a major supplier of green energy to the European Union. And that is also why we have invited the industry to join us, because we need you to make this vision and this political idea a reality. So, first of all, welcome all of you to Esbjerg, and I look forward to hearing your inputs today. But first of all, I look forward to signing the paper, because this is what Europe and the world needs. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Chancellor Scholz, where do you see the benefits and maybe also the main obstacles in actually achieving the grand vision that is being presented today?
Thank you. Thank you for the question, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and discuss with you about this very important question. And I think it's really the right place to give us the understanding what is happening, because using the North Sea and using the wind is something that has a big tradition in all our countries. We are very experienced with this, looking back to the seafarers and the shipping and all the things that happened in the past. And now we understand that this is the basis for a new industry where we can use some of these experiences, but we can mostly understand that the vision that has been the basis for all these activities in the past is also the same vision we need today, to do something very progressive which helps to connect the world and to supply our countries with the needs we have. And looking at this situation here now, I think the big vision is that we have to expand the offshore wind industry all over the North Sea, that we have to connect each other, that we can make a common business out of it, and that we understand that this is now the time for industrialization. When we started with offshore businesses in the past, we discussed about the one windmill, the other one, and the first farm that has been built. And it was not really something that is very far away from the craftsman's activities. It was not industry. But what we understand today is industry is coming into this. And this makes it cheap. This gives us the idea of having progress all the time and getting investments which have not the need for subsidies anymore, which was the task in the past. So the question is, what are the advantages and obstacles? Going to this industry, enlarging the opportunities of building offshore wind farms all over the North Sea, connecting each other, but doing this industrialization business in a way that we get the benefits from industrialization, making things cheaper all the time and making it a big thing that helps us. Just to give you the understanding from the perspective of my country, we today use 600 terawatt hours of electricity. We expect to use 800 in the end of this decade, and it will go up to 1,600 in the end of the 30s. If we understand this as the real turn that is happening, it means that it is not a small-scale business we are discussing about. It means that we understand the big task that is linked to this if we also decide that all this electricity should come from renewables and especially the offshore business. On the other hand, we have to understand that there are more opportunities, not just electricity, but also the chances of hydrogen. Others will say more about it, so I don't want to catch all the questions that could be answered. And just say the things have to be understood together. We have to be courageous. We have to do it now. It is not a business for the future. It's a business today.
Thank you very much. Chancellor Scholz, very strong message that it's time for industrialization. But time is also pressing, and with industrialization comes the bottleneck and the transmission lines and the grids. Are you confident that we can scale up in Europe with the speed needed? Chancellor Scholz, yeah?
Me again. I haven't expected to have two questions. So
you're lucky.
I'm a bit astonished, and I'm very pleased for this privilege. Thank you. I think we have to speed up, and we have to understand that this means a lot of changes in our legislations. We are at this time doing this, and the decision of the German government in this case is that we will do it this year, all the decisions necessary for speeding up. And the idea behind this is, if we do it in 2 years, we might take, in the end, 10. If we do it in 1 year, we might succeed. And though we decided to have a spring package, a summer package, an autumn package, just to take the decisions necessary and getting all involved. And as we heard in the beginning, it is the right time to do it because of the war of Russia against Ukraine. We have to understand that what brought us into this business, which moved us to change our perspective on how we produce electricity, is now urgent for fighting for independence and for sovereignty of our energy supply in our countries. So saving environment and saving sovereignty is in this stage the same task, and so it is very good that we are coming together here and we are doing it today.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. Alexander De Croo, the Danish Prime Minister, mentioned the importance of this being affordable. I mean, the citizens are out there, and they are looking for the jobs and who is going to pay the cost of this transition. What is in it for the citizens of Belgium, what you are signing up to today?
Yeah, I think this works. Yes.
Yes, it works, but you have to be very close to the mic.
That is indeed the right question. I mean, the 4 countries here, we are what you would call the North Sea Coalition. I mean, these are the 4 countries that have the ambition to build something in the North Sea. And what is significant is that what we do here is linking energy strategy with industrial policy. We have today an industry, and we see a very visual part of this industry here at this site in Esbjerg, but there is so much to this industry. On our side, we're very active in dredging and installation, and our Dutch friends are active in other elements. I mean, we are 4 countries together making an industrial policy, and this is extremely important to develop jobs in this, to gain competitive advantage that we can use in the rest of the world. This is how we have an impact in the world, is that our technology is reducing CO2 emission here, but also reducing CO2 emission in the rest of the world, because on a technological perspective, we're so strong. Now, why is this important for the public? 4 reasons. Reason number 1 is detach ourselves from countries to which we do not want to be dependent. For example, Russia. This is one of the most significant ways to replace part of the gas and oil production with something else. Second element, price. I mean, the only electricity production where the prices are going down year after year is renewables because of the progress in technology. Third element, less emissions, of course, that's quite clear. And third element is industry and jobs. If I look in my country, this is today an industry that is around 10,000 jobs, and the potential is that it would grow significantly. So all these things together, I mean, this is an incredibly important European story. Those 4 countries are pulling this for the moment, but the potential is everywhere in Europe. And instead of trading with a country with whom we do not want to trade, we should be trading energy with each other, which means from the north hydro, from the south solar, and from the coasts wind. And that's the type of trade that we need within Europe, and that you can only build if we do it together.
But then to you, Mark, to be in the same vein here, many have mentioned sort of this is also industrial policies, and this is very much on job. But how do we make sure that the transition then will also be an opportunity for the industry? We listened earlier to representatives from industry saying that it's challenging for the wind industry. There are skills issues, competences. How do we really harvest the potential here?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mette, for bringing us together. This is a great initiative, and thank you for being here, and not just the politicians, but together with industry and so many others. I believe there are no big issues we can solve these days without industry. And this is a huge issue. How to become less energy dependent, how to get this transition going. It requires all the innovation power you guys have in your companies. And we from government side can never do that. So there is this absolute get together of industry, government, of course also the NGOs, so everybody who could be worried about the environmental impact of what we are doing in the North Sea. That's also an issue we might talk about later. So we also have to be sensitive on what is happening there. But without industry it is not possible. If you take my country, for example, the offshore installation sector is a big strength the Netherlands can offer next to other stuff. We all have our specialties. So I believe what we need to do from the political side is to be as clear as possible on what are the targets, how can you help us to achieve what is necessary, how can we avoid putting extra public purse money into these projects if that is not necessary. I'm so happy that some of these wind farms are now being developed without government money being involved because you earn enough yourself, and that's great. And I think that combination is absolutely the future. It's not without problems. We have to be very clear with each other what you need from us. We have to be clear with you. These are the rules and the guidelines. But I think that delivers the long-term perspective to bring this ambition of 150 gigawatts in 2050 forward. And that's what we need to do.
Thank you very much to the Dutch Prime Minister. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the EU Commission, you have just flown in from Brussels where you presented the Repower EU strategy. So the timing here could not be better seen from our perspective. One thing that we haven't touched upon up here in the panel yet is the green hydrogen, but that will be an important part of this whole transformation, especially for the heavy industry. What is it that member states and the EU can do to fuel the green hydrogen revolution? I mean, we are also in a technological race also with others outside Europe.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me here, and Mette, many, many thanks for convening this meeting. This is really outstanding. I've looked into the history books, and we saw that the very first offshore wind park was built in Denmark in 1991. And now if you see 30 years later, 300,000 highly qualified, well-paying jobs. That is the offshore wind industry. And it is one of the main pillars for our renewable strategy and the energy of the future. So many, many thanks also for convening here this regional meeting, because for member states, this is an announcement, this is big, that you're working here together, because this means economy of scale, it means avoiding redundancies, and very important, it also means the optimal use of the maritime space that is there, if you're working together with all the infrastructure that is connected to that. Now, what is necessary, whether it's the offshore wind, or whether it's green hydrogen, what can the European level do? First of all, a framework is always important on the European level, because we should avoid any kind of fragmentation. But looking at the industry, we should make it as easy as possible to have cross-border pan-European development, be it in green hydrogen or be it in the wind element. The second part is, and here mainly looking at offshore wind, is the permitting process. I think the Chancellor already mentioned that nowadays we have permitting times between 6 and 9 years. So today the European Commission put on the table a proposal to create so-called go-to areas. This would be one here, for example, in Denmark, and where we can work together in a way that the permitting period is no more than 1 year. And I think this is of utmost importance for the future of the industry, because you need predictability. This brings me to the next point, and this is also in the green hydrogen. De-risking investment. So we can do a lot to de-risk investment, private investment that is necessary to boost the development of the industry. And with that comes along having very clear targets where we want to go to. Today we proposed for renewables to increase the target of 2030 towards 45%. And if I look at the green hydrogen, the target will be raised to double in 2030. For that, looking at the green hydrogen, I mean, it is the energy of the future. Looking at that, it is important to create an ecosystem here in the European Union that works on all sides, the demand and the supply side. And therefore, we have created two so-called IPCEIs, which are agreements in the European Union of common European interests, where we work from the demand side and the supply side to make it as good as possible for you to have the European level, the national level, the industry side, the research side into this working consortium, so that the topic of green hydrogen can be pushed forward as much as possible. Last point for green hydrogen, on one hand, it is the European production here at home, if I may say so, but of course we will need so much green hydrogen by 2030 that we are also enabling much more the production in the global south, because there they have the resources in abundance that are necessary. So we come from the European level to invest in countries that normally would not be able to produce green hydrogen, and to thus have there the infrastructure that is necessary to produce the green hydrogen with the necessary pipeline network that is needed to bring it to the European market. So, very complex, but that's what the European Union is for. Many, many thanks again here for this regional hallmark that you're showing. It's amazing to be here. Thank you very much for that.
And thank you very much, Ursula von der Leyen. I think that people were just sort of, did they really hear the right thing when you said go-to areas with no more than 1 year planning period? That would be interesting to see all of you going back and really just doing that. That would really speed up things. But of course, we all know there are many challenges in doing that. Now, there are many challenges. We have already heard you present the vision and many of the aspects. We have 4 CEOs up here. And their job now is to try to, they have also listened to what we all have listened to, and to try to pick 1 or 2 barriers or sort of special challenges that they would like you to be aware of and to mention. And I think Søren Skou, CEO of Maersk, you will get the floor first, please.
Yes, thank you. Before I answer the question, perhaps I should say, and I can probably say that on behalf of all the CEOs here, that we really applaud both the vision and the level of ambition of what is happening here today, because the scale of the problem is enormous, and we need enormous solutions. To put it in context, we have started in Maersk to invest in ships that can run on power-to-X fuels, e-fuels. And we've ordered 12 ships so far, and every ship we order from here on will be able to do that. But the first 12 ships are only 2% of our fuel usage, and they need 1.5 gigawatt of power to produce the fuel. So when we are all done, we need 75 gigawatt of power to fuel the whole Maersk fleet of 700 ships. So it's an enormous challenge. I think the biggest challenge for us, of course, is to make sure that this is that we think about in terms of cost competitiveness of the renewable power that we produce in Europe, because cost competitiveness is what European industry will need, and certainly also those of us that hope to use power-to-X fuels or e-fuels. And then I think, particular to the e-fuel issue, there will be a long discussion about how we get enough biogenic CO2 to actually make it happen. But those would be the biggest challenges seen from my perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Søren Skou. Manon, the big, you represented TSO. Your perspective, please.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think it's really good that 4 North Sea countries and Europe, who are actually world leaders, that we bring them together right now. I think, Mrs. von der Leyen, you said it, Denmark hat Bügel den fürste Hau-Windmühlenpark. Und Deutschland hat die Technik weiterentwickelt. Nederland heeft de kosten verlaagd. Et la Belgique a déjà un bilan impressionnant en matière d'offshore. We, as TenneT, we pioneered in this area, and we realized, I think, from the start, cross-border benefits, connecting 10 gigawatt today and connecting 40 gigawatt until 2030. Also, a short thanks to the heads of government and to the President of the European Commission for bringing us together and making this a chef-sache today, because I think that's what it is. 1 or 2 points to add. I think you already underlined we need a joint, reliable growth path together. If I may add 2 to them, I would say, first of all, we need to speed up cross-border projects together, because cooperation is also a physical thing. We are now, and I think Mr. Scholz also said that, we are connecting each offshore wind park separately, but we need to go to an interconnected system. And so we need to make sure that these cross-border projects are in interesting investment cases for everybody. Technically, it's possible, so we need the right incentives here at the EU and the national level. And we are gaining experience ourselves with these first cross-border pilots, but I think in the end, markets must first emerge, I would say, before a complex set of market integration rules applies. So I would also personally call here for exemptions from the current legislations to get these investments kick-started. And then if I may mention one more thing, that is, we need to agree on a common language. So AC/DC, that is not just the name of a rock band, but it's a technology of converting renewable energies. And it's a technology that is so young that the components of the different suppliers do not understand each other today. So we are unable to connect a converter station of, let's say, Siemens Energy to a converter station of Hitachi. And so it's really important that we get the right, and that's also to the European Commission, the right standards in place so that the electricity system of the future that we are building is compatible with the energy system today. Because if we don't develop and set the standards here, they will be developed elsewhere in the world.
Thank you so much. also for this last. It's a very basic point, one could argue, but still important that the systems can actually talk together and the people on the ground also understand what each other is saying and that the standards are compatible. I would now turn to Luc van den Bulke from DEME, please. Luc.
Yes, thank you. Let me first of all congratulate everybody. It is an ambitious framework, but it's certainly feasible. And to stick a couple of numbers to that, I reckon there will be between 4,000 and 5,000 turbines to be installed before 2030. We, as a company alone, have installed 2,500 in the last 10 years. So this should be feasible with a couple of colleagues I see in the room, but that was in a European market, in a solely European market. Today we have the US market booming, we have the Asian markets booming, so we will have a lot of strain on resources, logistics, resources, materials, and so on. So I think we really need, it has been mentioned before, a stable framework. That's the first thing, and the speed. If I can appeal, don't let the rules rule. Let us have the ambitions and let us create the framework for the ambition. And then I think one other point, we will need to install, of course, the offshore wind farms, but also the interconnecting infrastructure. And for this scale, we will need the islands. And let me appeal also to have the governments, the TSO and the regulators, and the private sector collaborate to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the last CEO we will hear from in this round will be Sven Uttermøhlen from the German wind farm operators and from RWE Renewables. Please.
Thank you, Connie. I think it's a fantastic signal that's going out from today and also from my side. Thanks a lot for that. I would like to illustrate the size of the opportunity, because the potential of the European North Sea and also the Baltic Sea, by the way, is really almost unique in the world, with its very shallow waters in combination with very high wind speeds. That is really something, and we are working globally, that is unique in the world. And as Europeans, we should use this potential really to its maximum. Just to illustrate the size of the opportunity, if I take Europe as a whole for offshore wind, we need to 15-fold the installed capacity by 2050. From where we stand today. And keep the number 15 in mind, it also means we need to install 15 gigawatts every single year from today until 2050. 15 gigawatts every year, that's many times what we are installing these days. So the opportunity is enormous, and of course the challenge isn't small either. What do we need in order to reach that ambition? Over and beyond the national mechanisms that we have in the various states, we really need, as Manon already said, we need to incentivize the cross-border projects, the so-called hybrid projects that interconnect offshore wind farms with more than one country and really create a meshed grid at some point. And by the way, we should also always think hydrogen in connection with that, and we should honestly also think beyond the EU, so we should include in our thinking the UK and Norway, for example, because of course these countries can also play a role here. What do we need for these projects to happen? We need strong collaboration in spatial planning, permitting, and tangible pilot projects for these interconnecting projects in order to get it going. And let's not try to be perfect in the first project, but let's just get it going and learn as we go along. And second, we need a framework that really makes these cross-border projects attractive to invest for both system operators, TSOs, and the wind farm developers. At the moment, the solutions discussed are either more positive for the one side or for the other. We need to strike a compromise. That is important to get these things going.
Thank you so much, Sven. And then we already had a number of input to you, and there will not be time to comment on all of it. Take it as input from industry. But I know that now a number of things were mentioned. Alexander De Croo, I know that in Belgium you have already been working on the energy island, and you also have experienced some obstacles and know a bit about how to overcome them.
Well, yeah, on the island we are, I think, one of the only countries in Europe that has a coastline but has no island. So we have an ambition to create some islands. Also because if we look at the constraints that we have 3 big constraints, and the number one constraint is space. If I look at all of your coastlines are actually, my Dutch friend I think is 15 times more than me. I think Denmark is like 40 or 50 times more, and Germany somewhere in the middle. We have a coastline of 67 kilometers. So it's quite limited how much we can do. Still, we'll get to 8 gigawatts installed there in a very complex way, because we have a coastline that is also used for a lot of commercial activities. What is important for us is that we work together. That's why we have a principal agreement on making an underwater cable to Denmark. That's why we're talking with so many countries to make this gigantic renewable factory in the North Sea. So that's one element, is use the space. And indeed, I think, as you said, what we have is quite remarkable. It's what they call the 3 S's. It's shallow water, it's sandy soil, which makes it easy to build, and it's steady winds, and that we should use to the maximum. So that's one element, is space. Second element is interconnections. The better we are interconnected, the more potential we will get. And then the third element is to have a systems approach, because this is not just about wind. This is about energy systems. And energy systems are about wind, and about other sources of electricity, and about hydrogen, and also about CO2 capture, and so on. Developing that as an energy system, which is using the full potential of what we have, that is something we can only do in a collective approach. And the density of opportunity that we have in this region is, I mean, there's no better place in the world to have this system approach.
Mark Rutte, you are in your 12th year as a Prime Minister, so you know that we have for so many years discussed how EU should do this and that and interconnect us. Are you confident that now, also in light of the war, now we will really get our act together?
Yes, I'm absolutely
Thank
convinced.
You. That was a brief answer.
That was a short answer. An example is REPowerEU, because REPowerEU, in my view, is not only a program to make us less dependent on Russia as soon as possible, but at the same time to do it in a way that we still can deliver on the targets we have set ourselves. And also that target setting is a European Union issue. We together have to set the targets. Together we have to make sure that there is a level playing field. But now, with the first urgency of now coming from the war in Ukraine and the Russian aggression against Ukraine, I'm absolutely convinced we will do this. However, at a national level, but also at the European level, we have to make sure that there are other transitions also ongoing. Yes, we have the energy transition, but we are talking also about other major transitions, like nature and food. And when you look at the North Sea, they are competing. They are competing for space, they are competing for attention. And what we have set up in my country is a sort of consultative body, where all these different aspects, so the nature, food, and of course the main one, the energy transition, are all discussed so that we have the necessary support from society to do what is necessary. Because if we would not do that, we could still have the 1 year, which is great, Ursula was talking about, but then we would have in our case a situation in which we would endless court cases and still the whole thing would not be successful. So I also need you, industry, to participate in those discussions and make sure that we collectively create the level playing field. And if you agree with me, an applause would be accepted.
You have been there for too long. Listen, time is almost up. We started just a little late, so I will try, Ursula von der Leyen, very briefly. One point that it is important for you to also have time to mention here on what we do from now.
Choose my question. Well, what I want to say is we have a good foundation already. We have the European Green Deals, we have the climate laws, so we have clear targets, and we have Fit for 55. The war in Ukraine, unleashed by Russia now, accelerates that. And this is REPowerEU today. I will not go into detail, but I think one point is important. We mobilize now 300 billion euros of investment in this Repower EU. Of course, this is not all wind, but a fair share will go into the wind system, the offshore wind, and very important hydrogen. And as long as we are living in the transition, the investments that still have to be done, for example, in gas pipelines, we always make sure now that these gas pipelines are built in a hydrogen-ready way. So the whole system is on a good foundation, geared up, and now it's accelerating it to get rid of the dependency of Russia and to invest in the renewable energy.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Olaf Scholz, just before Mette Frederiksen will get the last time to wrap us up, Olaf Scholz, again, now you will sign up the declaration. We go from here. What is the next thing that then must happen now? How do we actually make sure that citizens are not disappointed 1 or 2 years down the line?
It should be absolutely clear for all of us that this is not just a declaration. It is the manual book for what we have to do and what we will do in the next time. And not in 5 years or something like this. We will start with it from now. And this is the critical aspect. We have to understand we are not discussing about something that could or should happen years later. It is the thing that is now to be started, to be accelerated. And we should understand that this is not just important for all of us in Europe, because we need electricity as an alternative to fossil resources and as a driver for our economic growth. But it is also the chance for the rest of the world. Yes, in many parts of the world, they are looking for having a living standard as we have it. And they are doing right so. We will not be able to tell the people in Africa or Asia or the South of America that due to climate change, it is not feasible that they could reach the wealth we have here. We worked for the last 200 years with industrialization. But if they do it in the way we did it, it would be not good for them and not for mankind. So what we do is also giving the example and showing that as cheap as traditional industries, we can produce electricity with renewables, and we can do it as a grand-scale business. And this will help our people, and it will help the people in the world.
Thank you very much, Olaf Scholz. And Mette Frederiksen, you will wrap up this session. We have had a lot of input as to how to materialize this grand vision, and we also heard it's time for industrialization. At the same time, I know this is close to your heart, we also need to do it with citizens. So when you go from here, sort of how do you see us take the next steps from here?
Well, to conclude on this session, I mean, we have the North Sea and we have the wind. We have the companies and the technology. We have the private investments to ensure this. When you look at my 3 colleagues, we have the European leadership and the political will to actually do this. So I think one of the most important things in this discussion today was the wording from you, Ursula, because we have to speed up. So we have the wind, we have the companies, we have the business, we have the technologies, we have the private investments, and we have the political will. What we need now is to speed up, because we don't have 30 years, 20 years, or even 10 years. We have to do it now. And we have used too much time in waiting in very, very long periods of time because of permissions and so on. And I mean, it is a problem in Denmark, but sitting between 2 German colleagues, I mean, the problem is even bigger in Germany, historically. So I think what you said, Ursula, that we need to make a fast track for these big investments, and we would like to do it regionally, because we know that even though the 4 countries of us have set very high green ambitions, we are not strong enough and we are not big enough to do it on our own. So we have to stand together also in this discussion. So if you can promise, and I know you are always able to solve the problems, Ursula, that's why I really like you as head of the Commission, that we can, because you are able to build it even quicker than what is shown today. But if you can ensure us that we don't have to, understand me correctly, waste a lot of time with bureaucracy, then I think we have all the figures now in front of us, and in few minutes or hours from now we have the declaration, and then we just have to collectively make sure that in very, very short time the European population can see that we are actually able to ensure this.
Thank you a lot, Prime Minister Frederiksen. I think nobody in the room can be in doubt that the dedication is here from the leaders. Thank you very much. Very often, this will be a sort of grand target set, but there is a spirit in the room that now we really need to do it. So thank you all for being here. Now, a piece of practical information. All the guests here, you are invited to a reception out there. In between, or here up, there will be a family photo, and the energy ministers will join. Some of us can already both see and hear them up here. So they will join us, join the people on stage. The rest of you, please, you will attend the reception. The heads of governments and the Commission President will join us shortly out there. And please be back here at 5:20. At 5:20. Thank you so much.